So today we're going to be talking about moving forward. So a lot of people will hear the thought or the motion of moving on from grief, but
Have you moved on? Are you moving on? How are you moving on?
yes, but if you spent any time in your journey in grief, like if you're down the track a bit, you realize that you're not actually moving on, you're moving forward.
I've had that question
You have.
thrown at me and our family, and at the time, yeah, it hurt like hell.
You probably don't
That's okay.
understand that grief is not something you can get rid of.
It's just a good reminder that we're all messy and like, man, we've missed the boat plenty of times.
One day you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, this is beautiful now. I can use the moments and the emotions of my grief and actually feel closer to my person without, melting down or feeling really sorrowful. Welcome everyone to another episode of Good Grief. We're so glad you're here.
I didn't know who was introing because I was totally prepared to intro, but welcome.
Oh,
Yep. This morning has been fun and crazy. I stubbed my toe trying to move our lounge because our lounge room isn't set up like this all the time. So
no, we move it every time.
lifting the lounge by myself and dropped it on my toe, and then went to plug in our power board and got stabbed with some bamboo, and you were picking bamboo out of my elbow.
I was.
So I'm
Wifey to the rescue.
yeah, you're amazing. I'm glad now that we're sitting down and nothing hopefully can fall on me or hurt me. We're safe.
Now we can get on with it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be talking about moving forward because a lot of you have been asking about that. A lot of you are early on in your journey, and so we thought we'd touch on some pointers. Obviously we don't have all the answers, but we're 10 to 11 years on, so
I thought you were going to give us a rating. We're 10 to 11.
we're 10 to 11 stars, everyone.
So there's some terminology and some language we're going to talk about. We'll talk about something that is quite new and recent that we've seen, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about some faith aspects to the idea as well of moving forward. But this is a big one, and I don't think anyone has a perfect process. So if you've come looking for like a 3-step, manual, this probably isn't the podcast for it. But
that's not what we're given here.
But I really believe this conversation is going to be really wholesome and helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So where should we kick off? What do you think?
Well, do you have something to share with us?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
You want to start there?
Yeah.
Okay. It's a little book that I brought along today. And by little, it's 61 pages or so. It's called A Grief Observed by our good friend, C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, we call him a mate. He's been good to us.
Yeah, and we've actually shared, I've shared a few things from this book in our Facebook group and on Instagram and different places. And a few of our followers have actually said that they've got the book sitting on their shelf, which is like...
This one?
Yeah, which is like job 1, done.
Well done, you lot.
So if you've got the book, well done. If you haven't heard of it or you haven't bought it yet, I'm going to share something from it, and maybe that'll give you a bit of an insight into C.S. Lewis. But if you don't know some of his story, he married his beautiful wife, Joy, in 1956, and she passed away in 1960. So 4 years later. Ugh. Yeah. And they were longtime friends. And so this book is like literally his thoughts as he was having them just journaled out. So it's really raw and super vulnerable. So reading it, it's kind of like reading your own thoughts. Yeah, It's like his diary.
Right.
Yeah. And, most people know C.S. Lewis as either author, of Narnias and different amazing stories, or as a theologian and someone of faith. And in this book, he's just so honest with his thoughts towards God and his journey as well. So I wanted to share a piece from here that is on the topic of, or on this idea of moving forward. And it's a moment where CS kind of has this breakthrough in his journey of grief after losing his wife. and sort of talks about it in a way that he never knew existed. And so bear with me as we enter the world of C.S. Lewis.
I'm excited. I haven't heard this, everyone.
And, this was written a decent time ago. And so some of the language, I don't fully understand either.
Okay.
I've read it a ton of times and I'm still kind of like, I don't understand what that means. So if you're listening and you feel the same, don't worry, we're on the same page.
You're not
Okay.
alone.
All right, C.S. Lewis writes, something quite unexpected has happened. And before I might go back because I'll also say this. Sorry for jumping around, but one of our followers actually mentioned she has the book but hasn't been able to pick it up because of not knowing like what she'll come across or if she's ready for it just yet.
Yeah, what
And
she'll experience.
Yeah, and so hopefully this just eases that
Yeah.
journey as well. All right, I'll start again.
Okay, so if you can't pick up a book, Ryan's going to read something to you.
Yeah. C.S. Lewis says, something quite unexpected has happened. It came this morning early, for various reasons, not in themselves at all mysterious. My heart was lighter than it had been for many weeks. For one thing, I suppose I am recovering physically from a good deal of mere exhaustion, and I'd had a very tiring but healthy 12 hours the day before, and a sounder night's sleep. And after 10 days of low-hung grey skies and motionless warm dampness, the sun was shining and there was a light breeze. And suddenly, at that very moment, when so far I mourned H, which is what he refers to his wife as in this book, when I mourned H least, I remembered her best. Indeed, it was something almost better than memory, an instantaneous, unanswerable impression. To say it was like a meeting would be going too far. Yet, there was that in it which tempts one to use those words. It was as if the very lifting of the sorrow removed a barrier. Why has no one told me these things? How easily I might have misjudged another man in the same situation. I might have said, he's got over it. He's forgotten his wife. When the truth was, he remembers her better because he has partly got over it. Such was the fact, and I believe I can make sense out of it. You can't see anything properly while your eyes are blurred with tears. You can't, in most things, get what you want if you want it too desperately. Anyway, you can't get the best out of it. Now, let's have a real good talk. Reduces everyone to silence. I must get a good sleep. Ushers in hours of wakefulness. Delicious drinks are wasted on a really ravenous thirst. Is it similarly the very intensity of the longing that draws the iron curtain, that makes us feel we are staring into a vacuum when we think about our dead? Them as asks, at any rate, as asks too importantly, don't get it, perhaps can't get it. And so perhaps with God, I have gradually been coming to feel that the door is no longer shut and bolted. Was it my own frantic need that slammed it in my face? The time where there is nothing at all in your soul except a cry for help may be just the time when God can't give it. You are like a drowning man who can't be helped because he clutches and grabs. Perhaps your own reiterated cries deafen you to the voice you hoped to hear.
Wow.
Interesting.
I just love that he gives us permission almost to partially move on from the sorrow, because that's when we'll feel closer to them.
Which is so counterintuitive. I often think that I often thought that by showing that emotion or feeling those heavy emotions is me doing my, part in paying respect or
Mm.
feeling closer.
Mm.
But he almost says the opposite in that moment.
Yeah.
And the fact that, you know, you can't see clearly with blurred eyes full of tears.
Absolutely. And I think it's necessary. You need to go through that stage.
Totally.
But then the clearing is when you start to remember all the things and when they start to feel like almost an invisible friend, if you will. Like when you're a child and you've got that person with you that you can't see, but you talk to them and you make memories with them and you've got stories together. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Mm. And the idea that when we want something so much, it almost spoils the thing that we want.
Mm.
You know, he says that a delicious drink is ruined by a ravenous thirst. And I know that's so true. Even when I'm thirsting for water and I'll grab a glass and I drink it too quick and now I'm choking or it goes down the wrong way. And I'm like, I wanted that fresh taste, you know, but it was spoiled because I was too desperate for it.
Mm.
And the idea that,
Or when you chug down a beer and then you're like, dang, I wasted that beer. I can't enjoy it.
is that your experience?
Well, that's more what I was thinking you would say.
Definitely wasn't going to say that. I like to savor my drinks. Thank you.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean.
Right.
I think he's saying that, you know, nice drinks, like not just water that everyone can, not everyone, but most people can get their hands on. But nice drinks, if you were to drink them quickly because you were thirsty, you had ravenous thirst,
Sure.
they're wasted.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe a cocktail or something like
Yeah.
that. Right.
Yes.
And I think the other aspect is when he's referencing God, like in our deepest, darkest place, when we cry, you know, out for help so desperately, is almost the place where we won't hear God's voice because we're almost centered on self in a way during those moments. It's super, super deep.
Rather than being still and just waiting on him.
Yeah. And we might talk about that a little bit more in this conversation as well.
Yeah.
But hopefully just hearing some of those thoughts resonated with you listening, wherever you're listening from. C.S. Lewis, I mean, that's just one piece of his thoughts in that book. Highly recommend getting it and reading it. But why don't
Show us the cover.
Well, there's multiple covers.
Right. A Grief Observed.
Yeah. It's a short little book.
So good. So much gold in there.
But why don't we talk about the language?
Yeah.
Yeah, fill us in.
Yeah, so a lot of people will hear the thought or the motion of moving on from grief. But
Yeah, have you moved on? Are you moving on? How are you moving on?
yes. But if you spent any time in your journey in grief, like if you're down the track a bit, you realize that you're not actually moving on. You're moving forward. Hey.
It's a powerful reframe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So we'd like you to, if you're in that spot of going, oh, when am I going to move on? I don't think I can ever move on. It's not about moving on. You're going to be moving forward with your grief.
yeah,
Because your grief will grow with you. It'll become a part of you. It's not something you'll ever get rid of. Yeah. It morphs and changes over time.
yeah, and you know, you can almost think of it like a train stopping at different stations. You know, you pick up different passengers
Some get off, some
Yep.
get on.
and you revisit those stations at various different times. You don't just say goodbye to them and never return. And that's sort of like how I think about grief a little bit. We're just moving forward to
Yep.
each station, and there's different moments at those places with different people. So moving forward is just is great language to use. And forgive those people that have said, have you moved on?
Yeah.
You know, they haven't known any better. I've had that question
You have.
thrown at me
Yeah.
and our family. And at the time, yeah, it hurt like hell. No questions about it. But now just understanding that, hey, like they were doing the best they could to try and bring up conversation in a a really messy time.
Yeah, they probably don't
That's okay.
understand that grief is not something you can get rid of.
Definitely not.
It's with us for life.
Yeah.
now.
And so why don't we talk about what that looks like, moving forward? What are some of the things that you feel are part of that journey?
Yeah, so I think that moving forward with grief, as we all know, grief changes you. And so the grief, like I said before, it morphs and it changes over time. And it's not something that we can just leave behind, but it'll always be there and be a part of us. And it actually will help us remember our loved ones and certain things and memories at times. So it actually becomes more like a friend.
It does. And I don't think of it like baggage. I don't think grief is baggage. I actually think grief is beauty. And I also think that people who have grieved understand love better. Not only loss, but love. And so, for people that haven't gone through grief just yet, which is something that most of us will face in this life, before grief, I would say that I was sort of insensitive to some of the things that I'm now sensitive to. And so I do think that it's not like baggage, but it actually makes you better, even though it's so painful and you wouldn't wish it upon anybody.
You almost get stronger at carrying it.
Totally. It's a great way to put it.
And you might carry it in different positions in different ways in different seasons of your life.
Yeah.
And I think that people from the outside it might seem like they're wanting you to stop crying, stop grieving, stop whatever. But if they haven't been through grief, I think that they feel uncomfortable with your pain, especially if they care for you. It's hard to see someone going through grief and feeling these things and not looking happy. And
we just generally don't know how to sit with people that are going through pain.
Yeah.
We want to say something, do something to try and fix, the situation. And so it's probably important to understand that, other people's expectation of your grief isn't your responsibility.
Yeah, it's not. So let's give our people the permission to not take on that responsibility of other people's thoughts on your grief and your journey.
And it's no different to any other expectations that people have of our lives anyway. Like other people's expectation of our marriage or the way we do family, friendships,
It's not your business. That's theirs.
Totally.
And they need to deal with that. And you can always, like in our previous episodes, we've gone through how to help people who are supporting you through your grief or who aren't doing a very good job at being there for you.
Let's say they're doing the best they can.
Yes. Yeah. You can always tell them what would help and where you're at and what it feels like for you. If they don't know really how it feels, you can explain that to them and help them understand a bit better. But don't take on the responsibility of what they're feeling for you.
Yeah, there was a time when we were traveling with our band. We were down in Adelaide playing a show in a small community hall full of kids. And, at the time, this was after Dad had died. We'd written an album. Many of the songs on that album told of that journey and that story. And sort of our final song for the night was and is still the most emotional, raw song that we've written to date. And as we were playing it, midway through, I couldn't sing any longer. Like I was out, like tears just streaming down my face, just ugly crying, like full ugly crying in front of, however many kids in that room. And I was a bawling mess and I ended up on the ground. They helped finish the song together and I was just literally child's pose. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Just on the ground, bawling my eyes out. And the most beautiful thing happened. And I just felt the whole room pick me up and just surround me in that moment. And literally everyone was on the stage and like surrounding. It was just this massive group hug. The whole room turned into a group hug, and that's how the whole set and our song ended. Our band was probably thinking, what the heck is going on? That wasn't a thing that happened night after night. It was just one moment, really rocked me. And I was a blubbering mess, but it was so beautiful to have everyone just surround me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were some people thinking, this guy's weird, or weak, or any of the other thoughts or expectations.
Is he not over it yet?
Yeah, that could have come out. But for the most part, it was just full of love. And everyone, I've never had a group hug so special or big in my life from people that I didn't know.
Yeah, wow.
So I was okay to put my expectations down, I guess is what I'm saying, of what people might think. And I really couldn't control myself anyway. It was just ugly crying.
Sometimes we got to do the ugly cry.
Totally.
It feels good.
Yeah.
A lot of you know from my story that Mum passed like 6 weeks before my oldest brother's wedding. And after that wedding, I was traveling with a friend. We went to Canada and the States, and I went and visited some friends on the East Coast. And so this is literally like 2 months after Mum's passed by the time I'm there. And this friend that I was staying with, for whatever reason, was just being really weird and not a good host. And I just felt so uncomfortable being there. And they said they were going to work when they said they had time off to see me. And it was just really bizarre. And I was just like not feeling amazing after being in all these emotions from the wedding and Mum passing and not being around. And I just snapped. I just snapped at him one time. And I was like, I can't believe you're treating me like this. I said, my mum's just passed and this is the last thing that I really need right now.
Which he knew.
He knew.
100%
he knew. And I think just me just letting out my emotion about how crap of a friend he was being and a host and stuff, I don't think he really realized how the grief was sitting with me at the time, and that him not being a great friend was, really rocking me. So
and do you think, like, looking back, I mean,
he's apologized since and,
right.
and said I acted poorly and I'm
Sure.
really sorry. I was a crap friend. But I lost trust in the relationship, to be honest. Like our relationship's not been the same since. So that really shook me.
Yeah. And so, he may have had expectations of you on your journey, maybe needing to have been in a different way or have been acting, showing up differently.
Yeah.
But you were just doing all you could.
Yeah. I was trying to be really flexible and a good guest, but
yeah, wow. It's tough.
I was just like, I can't be responsible for how you're acting right now. I just need to tell you how I feel, and this is what's going on, and this is how it is, and sometimes you just got to be real with people.
Yeah, you do, and also it's just a good reminder that we're all messy, and man, we've missed the boat plenty of times in how we've responded,
been insensitive or not thought things through. Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about sort of the language reframe, moving on to moving forward.
Yeah.
Talked about letting go of worrying about what other people's expectations are for our grief and our journey. Would there be anything else to sort of mention on this?
Yeah, just
thought?
that just to know that you're not letting go of grief. It's coming with you, whether you like it or not. And it's just gonna morph and change and grow with you, and it's gonna look different from today in a couple of months, in a couple of years. And
super different.
One day you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, this is beautiful. Now I can use the moments and the emotions of my grief and actually feel closer to my person without, melting down or feeling really sorrowful or...
Yeah, one of our followers had just lost her dad and was coming up to the first year, anniversary of that moment. And sort of, it was in the same month. November. And I said, wow, it's coming up to 11 years with my dad. And she said, oh, it must feel like it was just yesterday still. And I said, yeah, it does. But then I thought about it. I'm like, no, it actually doesn't now.
Anymore.
But I know for a number of years, I can't remember exactly when that feeling changed, but I know when it came around to November, it still felt like it was just yesterday. And that's changed. And it doesn't feel like it was just yesterday anymore.
Yeah.
But I've grown closer to that grief. And so just like meeting you, for a long time, it just felt like it was just yesterday, but it doesn't feel like that anymore.
No.
You know, we have journeyed along and grown closer and had
And done a
adventures and a
lot,
whole bunch of
yeah.
things. But for many a year, for those first years, it was like, man, it was only like yesterday that, you know, we first met. So it's kind of similar to that. If you're early in your grief journey, it's somewhat relatable to knowing someone for a long time. There does come a point where you're like, oh, we've known each other a long time. It doesn't feel like it was just yesterday. It's similar to grief.
I think you can put yourself in the moment
Oh,
so that it
totally.
feels like yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
But generally, it now feels like it's been ages.
been a while.
It's been a lifetime.
Yeah.
Like I've gone through so much without them here.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, this morning I was looking for a devotional. For anybody looking for devotionals on your phone, it's just a great way, you know, when we're traveling and so forth, even in the morning, if you can't feel self-led to open your Bible or, you know, to put worship on or whatever the case is, there's two things we go to, but our main is an app called Lectio.
Oh, we love Lectio.
Lectio 365, Lectio
Yeah.
365, free app, daily devotionals and meditation and prayer. It's a really, really cool way.
If anyone else listens to it, let us know.
Yeah, and shout out to Dennis and Joy for leading us to it, our
Our
great
beautiful
friends.
yes.
So we often will listen and go through those. But today I just opened up YouVersion, which is the Bible app. Most people will know the Bible app. And it's got a verse of the day. And today's was pretty cool
It was.
because it's one of our favorite.
Yeah.
It's Psalm 147:3, which says, he heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. And that's one, you know, that we share often because we are brokenhearted and we are wounded and we do need that healing. And the devotional, I thought was so perfect and spot on
So timely.
for this conversation
Yeah.
that we shared it on Insta.
It's like they're new.
So if you're probably listening to this, you
It's
may
like
have,
they're listening
you
to
may
us.
have seen it already.
Yeah.
But I want to walk through these steps because they're really cool.
Yeah.
Really powerful.
Let's do it.
And so this is coming from that scripture, Psalm 147:3. And the idea is that God being sort of the great physician, okay? And I sort of referenced the fact that over the last 11 years, he's done a huge surgery on my heart, on our hearts, you know, and it's not just been one surgery, it's been many surgeries that we've needed. But we're being mended and healed day by day. And so it says, you know, some wounds are minor and others run deep, but they all require attention and care. And for a heart to properly heal, there's a process. So they go on to lead sort of a couple of steps here. They all begin with R, which is nice and easy. For me anyway.
R for Ryan.
Maybe we can find some steps that start with C for Kaylee.
Please, I feel so left out.
But let's just walk through these. The first is
Yeah.
reset.
Reset.
And it just says, be honest with God. Listen to his words and allow his word to realign your perspective. And I think that's huge to come back to as our foundation. Because there's so much lies
There is.
out there. And there are so many people saying, well, your truth is your truth and my truth is my truth. But I think coming back to the truth,
There's only one truth.
yeah, what his promises say about us and what his promises say for us. So the first is just aligning to God's perspective. And at times I can totally understand that is harder to
Oh,
do.
yeah. Harder to do.
Easy to say
Than said.
than to be done.
Yeah.
The second though is rest. It says one of the greatest gifts God has given us is the command to rest, which happens to also be the expedited way to healing.
Oh,
So cool, hey?
so cool. So important.
And I think it's contradictive to like what people tell us, that we need to do something, we need to say certain things or be a certain way to get our healing like in alignment and to speed it up. But ultimately, rest.
Rest. Yeah, I think I said to you earlier, I remember I was 24, almost 25 when Mum passed, and I just remember thinking, having the thought, maybe even talking it through with someone, just going, I'm going to give myself the rest of the year to rest and just chill and grieve and just
Looking back, I wish I had done that.
do life. I don't know where the thought came from.
Yeah.
I wasn't like you, reading all the books and doing all the self-development stuff, but Mum did a lot of that and talked about it. But I just had that thought, like, all right, well, I don't know what this is going to look like, so I'm just going to give myself the rest of the year. It was March
and you know, different for everyone again. It probably wasn't just lying in bed.
Oh no,
rest,
I was still going to work and that sort of thing. I went back to work and
but you weren't necessarily striving for things
in life or
yeah,
looking for a relationship or, you know, anything.
being kind,
crazy.
being gentle with yourself,
Yes.
allowing yourself space and time.
Yeah. Not making any crazy plans or
Yeah, so good.
yeah.
Yeah, in hindsight, I wish I probably had have rested more, but I just did what I did at the time. And so if everyone listening to this, you're probably just doing the best you can.
Yeah.
But
Just doing what you know.
This is your reminder and permission that you are allowed to rest.
Yeah.
And so that's number 2. Number 3 is resist.
Ooh.
Fight the urge to manufacture your own healing. Fight the urge to insist on your own timeline. And fight the urge to pull away from your ultimate healer. So it's a resist piece.
Yeah. Don't pull away.
Mm.
Yeah. I think a lot of people also have been telling us, they're not ready to talk about it, not ready to go there. Which is fine and give yourself that for a bit, but ultimately it's super healing to talk it out with God and talk it out with people.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God's not afraid of your feelings.
Totally.
And your thoughts.
Yeah. And he's big enough.
Yeah. He can take it.
Yeah. And if you don't have to talk it out with people,
Yeah.
you can totally talk it out with God for sure.
Or write it out.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that's number 3. Number 4, and I love this, ask God to heal you. And that's what we've been doing for 11 years.
100%.
The recipe is pretty simple. It's like, Lord, I can't do this on my own. Far out. If I could, I would have by now.
Oh my gosh. Where would we be without him? We would not be here, people, if it wasn't for
Totally.
him.
By his grace
Yeah.
alone. And so a simple prayer, that you may want to say, you may be happy with just me praying it. It's just simply this: Lord, give me strength for today when I feel like I can't stand on my own. Help restore my heart and bring your holy healing. Give me rest when I need it most. Amen.
Amen. Wow. Yeah, prayers don't have to be complicated or big words. It's just like talking, like a conversation. Yeah.
Oh, so we've been talking about moving forward.
Yeah.
It's slow progress. And eventually you look back and you go, wow, I've come a long way. Things look different than what they once looked like. My eyes aren't as blurry. My questions aren't always why, or why me, or why them. I don't feel like I'm in desperate need to clutch to the life raft. And I can allow myself, time, and I can talk, and I can share.
Yeah.
But it's one day at a time. Mm-hmm. It's moment by moment.
Yep. And everyone's days will look different.
Totally.
Yeah.
Wow, big one.
Big one. I hope you guys got something out of that.
Yeah.
I hope you can reflect and yeah, just listen to what we've talked about and
take some time to sit with it and process it as well. But this is just another conversation in many conversations on this journey, and we are continually praying for you. We also want to shout out everyone that's new in our world as well. It's great to have you listening along.
So many of you.
We've appreciated all the feedback, and I think the best thing that you could do from here is if you know somebody that might find this helpful, that's maybe grieving alongside you, or they're part of your family or network, just share this episode with them. That'd be super amazing.
That'd be so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't do this without you guys.
Totally. And if you are looking for a supportive community, what should everyone do?
Come find our Facebook group.
Yeah, the links are down below.
Yes.
So you can check that out, and we'd love to have you in there. And until next episode, this has been great.
It's been great. It's been good fun.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
We'll speak to you soon.
Ciao.
Bye for now.